guys? Welcome to Audio Addiction. We have Park in Maine with us, and he looks pretty familiar, so he can say his name and what he does in the band.
I'm Anthony Pagoric. A lot of my good friends call me Tony, and I am the lead vocalist and bass player of Park in Maine.
Awesome. So, obviously, Tony, you've been very familiar with the channel. We had to meet it was 2 years ago, I believe,
Yeah, too.
correct? And so there's a lot that has changed since the last time we chatted. Like, how have things been? How's the band kind of transitioned? Obviously, you're under a new name and stuff like that. So, if you want to delve into that, you can do that as well. But like, what was the process behind all that, and like, kind of, I guess, like turning a new leaf, essentially.
Yeah, so a lot of this got spurred by we're in a part. We've been a band, or we've had versions of this band for like 8 years
Yeah.
now strong. So we're at that point now where it's like we've done a lot of cool stuff, but you want to still, like, how do we get to the next rung or ladder and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
we've been like seeking out advice and seeking out other people to talk to, and you sift through all this stuff. Like on Facebook, everyone's got like the
Yeah.
three-step plans, and this guy I used to work with, bands of this nature, and like, is this guy a schmuck or is he real? This or that. So you're trying to sift through all this stuff, and you're trying to search still for good advice. Even though as long as you do this, like, you're constantly looking for new advice.
Oh yeah.
So we got this weird random opportunity to work with Ace Enders from the early November.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, so we've been working now with Ace on and off over pretty much the summer. Like, we've been kind of, and it's been unique, our situation. He's worked with, he's kind of reached out and kind of started working, as a consultant with other bands,
Yeah.
and we've kind of had this kind of unique. He's been kind of treating us a little bit differently in terms of like how we've been going about the process and stuff, just kind of with our unique situations.
Yeah.
Like, we're
Sure.
not a new band, and so we're kind of coming loaded with certain things that he, is kind of like, we're really thinking stuff out.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I really hit it off with Ace as well. Like, same guy, same age. He's got 2 kids. I have 2 kids. Like, there's a lot of parity in our lives, except for me, his band's like here. We're
Oh, come on.
a band trying to get there.
Give yourself some credit, Tony.
Yeah. But so, like, we've really hit it off, and so the first thing we started talking about when we started working together was thoughts on the name, because we were looking at it from a bunch of different angles, and one of the main reasons for it was like, hey, you guys have had different people come in and out. You've done so much, but is it kind of good for maybe like a reset? Like,
Yeah,
hey,
sure.
you got new members now, like. And I'm really the only one who's attached to the name, because I'm the only one who was originally there when it was dubbed, Oceans Over Airplanes.
Yeah.
So that was one reason. But then probably the biggest reason that I've really come to embrace now, in like the 3 weeks that we've officially changed the name, is that, people, like yourself, would interview us and be like, Oceans Over Airplanes, what's that all about? And I couldn't never say anything cool. It was just, oh, we thought the words sounded cool together, and that was it. And I think you have this really awesome moment where someone really loves your music and they want to talk to you, and like, here's this talking point, and they've been thinking about it in the crowd, or they've found you online, and this is their first question to ask you, and you lay just a dud on the table, and like, you have to now try to, like, it's like this person was all interested in this one thing, and then here comes our conversation. Like, you could talk the next half an hour perhaps about like your band without anything awkward.
And then you nuke the whole conversation.
Yeah, you like shoot yourself in the foot, right?
Yeah.
So that was a poignant thing to get after, is to find a name that not only represents musically what we want to do and where we think we're going to be headed off now in the future, but have something behind it. Have something that we stand for, that at least someone asked me that question, I can give an answer, and it's something that we believe in. So it's and ironically, it's worked out enough now where people are like, Park in Maine, what's that all about? And it's like, oh, you guess what? I got an answer for you for the first time in 8 years, So, so that's been part of it. So, I mean, we've been really looking at a lot of these things that you kind of take for granted after being in bands for a while, that you think you're doing. But when you're talking to a band who's signed and been through the branding process and the whole image meet down where
Yeah.
they get signed and you're in a boardroom and here's 10 people telling you you're going to look like this, you're going to dress like this, all the stuff you don't want to hear as a
Yeah,
fan,
sure.
or you don't. But even the bands that you think are the coolest bands or the the most indie or whatever the case
Yeah,
might be,
yeah.
they're still playing by the rules, some way, shape, or form. There's still some kind of rough outline. Um, so we've had to look ourselves in the mirror like quite a bit now,
Yeah.
and answer these tough questions. But it's been good, and we're not even close to being done. With kind of what our next year and a half is going to be, which is the exciting thing. Like we've done a lot in the short amount of meetings that we've had and talks, but they've been small points, you would say, but they've been big chunks of things that we've had to debate about. So that's kind of like the reason for the whole big change and everything else like that. So that's kind of the
That
main driving force.
Yeah, that was really cool. And like you were saying earlier, I remember that this thing when we had that interview at launch, and I was like, oh, I should ask him about like, the oceans over airplanes thing. And I was just like, oh wait, he gave me like nothing. And I just kind of like, not to like throw you under the bus or anything,
Oh no!
but I was like thinking, I was like, man, this is gonna be really cool. Like, it's an interesting name that I feel like people are like, when they hear that name, they're like, oh wow, that's a cool name. That's like really unique, really interesting. Not to take away from Park in Maine, I think it's really awesome as well. Equally as memorable to me at least. But for myself, I was trying to think like, even when we were talking about doing this like earlier on, I was like, like what am I gonna ask? What am I gonna ask Tony this time around? And I was like, Park in Maine. I was like, let me ask him like how that happened because like I saw all kind of like unfold on your Facebook, and I was like, he's been doing it for a long time. Like, I wonder why he changed it. What's with the revamp? And it's cool to see that. And also just to work with like Ace, I think, shout outs to our, lovely New Jersey band, the Early November.
Yeah,
They're just a class act. Ace, if you happen to watch this, like, let's do an interview in Philly. That'd be awesome.
yeah.
But like, he's fantastic. Like, and I've had other bands I've had on here recently that have been working with him. So I'm glad to see that, again, he has his talent as not only a solo artist, but also the Early November, but, as a band, doing stuff. I think it's really, really awesome to see him like branch out in that respect to do something with you. Was that I guess more on your end, or did you reach out to him and
It
like
was,
stuff?
yeah, it was he made like a random post, one day on Instagram and some
Hmm.
random video, and my wife has become a fan of the band over time, and she's like, of course, like tagged me in something and
Yeah,
sent
sure.
in like check this out, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I sent in a thing, and um yeah, and it was like, it was kind of like that, hey, cool, let's talk, let's see if this is gonna work, and if we feel like, because he's a straight up enough dude where it's like, he wants to make it his time, and if he thinks he can help, and if it's going to be the right fit,
Yeah, sure.
moving forward, so we kind of had, and it was really great. I mean, like our preliminary interviews, like, we talked for a good amount of time, like really just kind of getting through a lot of stuff. So it made me feel very comfortable, like moving forward, where I
Great.
was like, and then also too that like that initial conversation, I'm like, here's one of my all-time favorite bands, and I'm talking to the front man, this guy that I've, so I had like my initial like my one part, I had like my one line where I was starstruck, and I wanted to get it out like as soon as possible, type of
You
deal. And
have
then it's
to.
been good. It's been like all business since then, and we just kind of talk like normal dudes now, which is great. Like he can call me up, and I'm like, hey man, yeah, what's going up? How are we
Yeah.
doing today? And like, he even like texted me this week, like on the first day of tour, he saw something and shot me a quick picture of an image, because we've been like talking about our branding and everything. We're trying to get
Yeah,
that
sure.
all tidied up
Squared
and stuff.
away.
And so he like saw a picture that, that like, kind of like inspiration, I guess you could say, where it was like tied into Park in Maine. It was like some place called like 8th in Maine or something like that. And it
Oh
was like
man,
their
that's
logo
awesome.
work. And he like sent me a quick picture and stuff. So I was like, oh, cool, So yeah, it's been a cool experience. And I know he's been like, working with other bands and stuff too. So it's, like I said, it's awesome that he's able to, give back in a lot of these ways.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I've heard a
Can't
lot
say
of
enough
good
great
stuff.
things.
I've heard a lot of great things too on like my end, and obviously, obviously being more local to the area, like I know a lot of bands, we're all like within an nth degree of being friends. It's so funny, but like some bands locally that he's worked with, like Heaven's Sake is one. One I just had on The View from Here, they just did a song with him like not too long ago as well. And it's cool to see him do that and just be like real down the earth, because like you get some of those people that are like doing it and they're a little, they might have like an attitude or a little bit cocky about it. And I feel like he seems very like, the way he is. I've
Yeah,
never met him, but like I'd imagine he seems very cool.
yeah. I mean, it's you kind of get that way. You think about sometimes of like your idols or people that you wish you'd
Yeah,
meet, and then you hate it. You hear all these tragic things where people meet
sure.
someone and pass,
Yeah.
even just in passing, and they get rubbed the wrong way, where they're just like, hand in the face, or they just totally ignore, and you're like, shit, that was the moment I've been waiting for so many years, and it
Yeah.
there it went, came and went, and that sucked. But definitely not the case with this. So it's been great, definitely been great, and a lot of the new that's been happening, and a lot of the way that we've been feeling about stuff is directly related to his advice and just kind of trusting what he's put out there for us. So that's a big part of it. So
Awesome, awesome. Well, my next question, Tony, I guess it kind of follows up, obviously Park and Main and, doing new stuff, but like, do you feel like now, since, it's a new band, kind of like you're doing a fresh rebrand kind of a thing, are you guys, I guess, more willing or more apt to take risk on like, future material? Like what's been going on with like some of the writing? I know we were just chatting off camera before this happened that you're like practicing and stuff, and so, you know, are you kind of continuing in the same way of like Oceans Over Airplanes, or you just want to kind of I mean, I'm not saying like you're gonna go like off the wall like crazy stuff, but like, do you feel like there's just kind of like a freshness to what you're doing now, where you're like, okay, it's not Oceans Over Airplanes anymore. I don't have to be like set to a specific thing. I can kind of like go do my own thing and like kind of change it up a little bit.
yeah, I think that's the exciting and slightly scary
Sure.
thing at the same time. But we're definitely in the mindset now where it's going to be, how can we deviate away from this? Looking at our music, and it was a tough talk. I mean, we haven't gone super in depth, but the initial talks we even had about like evaluating our
Mm-hmm.
music and where we're at. Um, we're a band we have this modern kind of stuff about us. We have
Yeah.
these modern characteristics, but then we have this heavily rooted like emo 2003 vibe,
Yeah.
and
I
bands
got
that
you.
we identify with. And you have these two groups, and I think where we have struggled is that you got these two groups, but not either one I think is willing to hop and accept like, hey, we love this, but I'm not so sure about the modern stuff you're doing. And it's like,
Yeah.
and these people are like, oh, emo was so long ago, like just let go of it. So I think we're going to continue to have those influences, right? But I think
Sure.
the thing for us writing wise is that there's certain things that we fall into that's kind of like old hat for us. That it feels great, it's what we've always done, and those are the moments that we're going to kind of like pull our hands back and say no, like this part where we might play halftime, like not going to happen, or like hey, this total polyphonic vocal part here at the end of this song that sounds super awesome, but now just you think of bands like Taking Back Sunday. Now it's
Yeah.
like we're not going to do that, so it's like there's certain things that we want to do to break away from that. I mean, definitely those influences. You'll probably hear the emotion in my voice still, and you'll hear those type of things. But there are some stuff that we want to break off into, that you'll know that like, hey, they got that vibe to them, but
Sure.
some of those techniques and those kind of safety nets that we've had as writers, we definitely want to kind of step away from those for the time being, and we're just more conscious about that now as we're starting to write and what kind of things, because it's always a slippery slope. I feel like, because I know
Sure.
you mess around writing where it's like, yeah, I'm influenced. I want to write a song like that. And that's the one thing we're making sure not to do right
Yeah,
now
of
is like,
course.
we want to write a song like this. It's like, I want to be inspired by this, but I'm not even consciously thinking that. I'm just kind of whatever stuff I'm
Whatever
digesting.
comes out, whatever comes out.
Yeah, and then if we have to make some decisions of which way then to slightly push that, then we'll make those, decisions. But I think that's the big thing is that we just want to continue to push the envelope of like, hey, we're influenced by this stuff, but we don't want you to directly be like, put you
Pinpoint
right
it.
then and
Yeah.
there, because the thing is, and what we've had to realize is that while we've been really happy with what we've been making, it's like if you want to listen to early 2000 emo, you're not going to think of our band, right? You're going to go to what you've loved, like the
Sure.
bands that made you fall in love with that. So you're going to go listen to Early November. You're going to go listen to Jimmy Eat World. You're going to go listen to, you know, all those bands that we could just go through, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, and the tough thing is now is that all those bands are back, on
Still
reunion
doing it.
tours and
Yep.
like bigger than ever. So they're so accessible, right? So if
Yeah.
you had like a want for it, it's a tough thing to do. So, and it's not like I said, I don't feel like we're a copy of any of that, but like, like we have to realize that, there's plenty of other bands that have that we've been influenced by now that we just have to make sure we're, you know, influenced, but not trying to bring those things into our music these days. So, yeah, so that's going to be the push. So I think, our influences, we still have those. I think our newer influences have been, bands like the band Camino,
Yeah.
um, and Wild Cub, and the 1975, and, Two Door Cinema Club and Block Party. I've really been digging into those bands, more or less just from the sounds that they've been
Yeah.
able to
Sure.
create. And I think that's definitely related into something that we've tried to layer into a lot of our music anyways. So I've just been trying to take a lot of notes and listen to that stuff and vibe off of those type of things. So I guess if you're gonna label it, I think we've been interested in that kind of alt pop kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Sure.
But I already know, like, my voice is my voice, so it's like I'm not gonna be, I'm not a pop singer by any means.
Yeah.
So I think that's always the thing, that's going to make us us is, how I sing and how my voice sounds, and then, try to mess around with these other techniques and these other musical styles that are out there. But I mean, that's kind of where inspiration's been, stuff that we've been drawn to. Um, so yeah, we'll just kind of see where it goes from there. So our new single that we're going to be putting out, called "I Hate to Drive," I think is the reason we've kind of these two songs that we had. So Mind Reader came out, and Mind Reader's a
Yeah.
little bit different, but it still kind of has that classic like Oceans vibe.
Yeah.
So we
Sure.
didn't want to like totally like
Completely
on a
just.
left
Yeah.
field. Here it comes. The next song that we released that we're excited about is like, now here's a notch towards that
Further.
direction,
Yeah.
and then that kind of, I think, sets us up then for the future stuff. So like we've been demoing things now, and hopefully by the end of the like we have one producer we're going to kind of try out that's local to us,
Mhm.
that we think we'll try to get through one song with, and then we'll debate. We've been lucky to have like ABG Studios like right down the road, and he's done Real Friends, Knuckle Puck, the new Sleep On, well, the old Sleep On, but he worked with Sleep On before
Yeah.
they did their new album. So there's a lot of those bands that he worked with. Um, so we're debating about whether to work with him, but then there's, obviously now with the relationship with Ace, like there's that definite conversation about coming out to Jersey and, seeing something through with him. So that's kind of another thing that we've been talking about as well.
Well,
So
I gotta throw my hat in the rink, the New Jersey thing, I gotta say that, I feel like if I didn't like admit it to you on camera, I feel like I would be doing myself a disservice to, New Jersey as one of the prime spots for some really good records, but it's cool to see the progression because like I felt like, you know, I mean, even initially when I saw like the name change, all that stuff, I was like, I wonder if they're gonna try something different. Not like, keep not to say that this stuff was bad. It was just like I was wondering if they were just gonna try something different. Like if it was brand new, like if I was in a band and I had been doing it for 7 years, I would want to try something new. Like, and
yeah,
I think in terms of similarities, even though your sounds are completely different, there's this band called Dayseeker, and they kind of were much heavier, starting out like with their first couple records, and then as time progressed, they've become lighter. And then, this most recent record kind of, is that like middle ground between like, they still have some heaviness to them, but it's more melodic. There's a lot more singing involved. And so, I find that a lot of people kind of drop off, like you were saying. They're like, this isn't the band that I listened to, XYZ years ago and stuff like that. And I, I I always it always makes me a little bit aggravated because I consume so much music, and I know how bands kind of are, and I love when I kind of do like either a follow-up interview or like a follow-up review to one of their newer releases and stuff. And it's I think it's cooler to see a band that is taking risks, that are trying something different, where it's not like, let me write the same record like 3 or 4 different times. I love when a band really takes risks. It's something different, and I have to commend you for trying to do something different. And I like that you had that one song that kind of, fills that gap. And then you have one that's a little bit further along where you're like, okay, listen, if you like that one in some aspects, then you will probably like this single. And then, further on down the line, then people will be like, oh, wow, this is really good. And I think they transitioned well. And so, I think with some bands, it's just hard to get that hurdle of like, when you're transitioning sounds, you're like, it's either you like, for some reason I feel like they're either like, we could pull back the reins a lot on it, or we can just go full throttle. But like, I just feel like if you just take your time and you kind of slowly progress into that point, I feel like it comes out a lot better. I feel like you don't, quote unquote, lose a lot more fans. And I think just the product overall, people like can kind of understand where you're coming from, where you're like, okay, listen, Tony's been doing it for 8 years. Like, maybe he wants to try something different. I mean, obviously it's still going to have your spin on it, but it's going to be, you know, a different sound. And I think people have to learn to kind of accept that, because if you enjoy playing it, then me as a fan, I should be like, yeah, keep doing it, Tony, do it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, kill it. Like, it's something that I feel like a lot of people, in terms of perspective, don't really think about. They're just like, oh, well, this isn't this band or that band or whatever. And, I think it's a wrong, personally, I think it's a wrong mindset to have in terms of like new music and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and we look at it too. It's like I I can say I'm lucky enough to be in this band that I feel that every release that we've put out, we feel that it's been a step forward. And
Yeah,
so, you
I
know,
agree.
and every song that we get done recording, I would say over the past 3 years, I've just been more and more excited about. And so, you know, I'm fulfilled in that standpoint. And so I feel like, from patting ourselves on the back, like we feel like, the moves that we made have been great. And so I'm just continuing to trust our gut, with it, where it's like, okay, I'm hearing stuff a certain way. There's certain things that I've been drawn to. And I just feel like, you're constantly figuring out what your sound is. I
Yeah,
just feel that's a
growth.
healthy thing for anyone to do. And there's so many. I mean, if you can have styles of clothes that you change out, from year to year, I mean, you're gonna have tweaks in what you like. I mean, I don't think anyone out there, any fan of music, can say that what they were listening to now is what they were listening to 10 years ago, and they'd be
That's
lying
true.
to themselves, absolutely lying to themselves.
I mean, I
So
feel like there's some bands, like, I feel like there's a little bit of an exception to that rule. I mean, there's like nostalgia bands. Like, I'll go back and listen to like My Chemical Romance, or I'll go listen to like old Fall Out Boy, like when I was like in middle school or whatever, for like kind of like a nostalgia trip. But I don't,
yeah, yeah,
but
and that's totally that. I mean,
yeah.
that's totally who you are. But I mean, I did the same thing like this past weekend. I was listening to like On a Wire by the Get Up Kids, and I was
Oh, awesome.
revisiting. I was just looking at all my vinyl, and I was like, man, I haven't listened to this album in a while. I haven't listened to this, and they're all deep cuts, and it's stuff that's still me, and I will still stand by. But you'd be. I mean, a lot of the stuff that, like I said, that consumes me now, or that's in my player, it's different than when I was listening to,
Oh, absolutely. I
four or
would
five
say the
years
same
ago.
thing. But
But that old stuff is also then when I'm in a musical rut, it's like it's what you go to
it's the
first, right?
go-to.
It's like
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm gonna bring this back. I know I always listen to Get Up Kids. I can always listen to Jimmy World. Like that'll get me out of a rut in no time. I mean, hey, it's fall time right now. I'll tell you,
Yeah.
Futures by Jimmy World is gonna be like on repeat. That's like
I
my
just
classic fall
I
album.
actually just well, kind of the segue into my next thing, something that I really like that you guys did, or especially you did, was that you would have your vinyl player out and you put out like, your vinyl and you play it and you'd be just talking about the record or all that stuff, and I thought that was super inventive coming from a guy that does literally this is YouTube videos. And so I thought it was really cool, and like, I would love to start getting into it. I got to get a new player, but like, what, I guess, what inspired you to kind of do that? And do you feel like, some of those things are kind of leading you up to do like, more modern stuff? Like, I'm assuming you might have like a 1975 record or something like in your collection. Don't know yet. But like, what inspired you to kind of do that? Because I thought it was very interesting, and I'm curious if you might consider doing it again with like Park and Main.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna do it again. And let me ask you this personal question. Like,
Sure.
see, my debate was like, do I keep it like Facebook Live, right? Do I keep it like that kind of vibe and just go with it,
Yeah.
And of course, it's like as you watched several of them, so
Oh yeah.
I started scripting it out. The first one I was like, I went down that rabbit hole of like just you're talking, you're talking, you're
Oh yeah.
talking,
Oh, I
and
know.
then my wife's like, you know what? People like probably short and sweet versus like you rambling for like a half an hour, and I'm like,
Hmm.
okay. So I started scripting it out and stuff, and then it got it, it was just much better when it was scripted out. So I was debating between Facebook Live or just like
YouTube.
YouTube doing it,
Yeah.
and so that's been kind of like my debate because I was like, what would be better? Um, and then I kind of froze then in fear because I was like, oh, if I'm gonna do in YouTube, then I'm gonna do like this cool. I'm gonna work on my
Setup.
video work, and I'm gonna have like this cool intro segue and all this cool, tasty B-roll and stuff. And I started going down film rabbit hole
Oh, I
throughout the
got you,
summer,
dude.
you know, and then and then people are like, I'm glad that you enjoyed it too because like I've had people ask like, hey, are you gonna do that again? Like I enjoyed
Well,
it, so
there
I'm
you
like,
go.
oh,
I'm the man of the people here,
so,
Tony.
so and if you say I got to do it, then I guess I'm gonna have to again. But no,
Oh, you're
I,
throwing a lot of weight. You're throwing a lot of weight on me here, Tony. I think I'm like, listen,
I think you're a
I.
good influence. Okay,
Oh,
let's put
thank
it
you,
that way.
thank
Just a
you,
good influence.
thank you.
Um, but no, my thing is that I wanted to have a way of talking about our band.
Yeah.
Um, but people get if I just go up once a week and say, "Here's the newest update from Park and Main," like it's as
Nobody
I
wants to
say,
hear that.
these are just asks. I'm
Yeah.
constantly asking, but I'm not giving anything back to fans. And so, one thing is that for as long as I've been doing it in our area and our scene,
Hmm.
I'm kind of looked at as like kind of like an elder statesman, I guess you could say,
Oh, I
and
know.
and kind of like a last man standing. You look at a lot of my friends that aren't doing this anymore. Right? So, I still feel it's kind of like my job. Even if I can't get out to as many shows as I want right now, like I can at least promote shows. I can at least
Yeah,
do
for
that,
sure.
and at least kind of let bands in the scene that at least we have around here, like, hey, like we're supporters. Like you want to do shows and stuff together, we're up for that. But like, hey, I'll also promote you. Like one band doing this alone is not going to help it. You
Oh,
gotta have to make
absolutely.
noise as a group. So I wanted to be able to do that, and then I I do love music and I love music history and I'm a nerd about that stuff. And I come from a generation too, and I'm sure that you probably feel the same way. Like I miss those days of opening up a CD and I would read the liner notes, and they could never be long enough, right? Like if you had a book, I'm reading it all.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
digesting all the pictures. I'm reading through the lyrics. I'd reread it again, like as if I'd find something new, which would never happen, but I'd still want to find it. And then as you get more into like being in a band, like you're like, oh, they're friends with that band,
Yeah,
and they're
yeah,
friends with that band. Like how cool is that? And then as you're trying to make it, like, well, who's this manager? Maybe I'll look that guy up.
yeah.
Maybe he'll be our band. There's just that whole part of it that I think is lost on so many people now. So I thought, okay, while vinyl is like this older thing, most people that are young are buying it more than
Yeah.
ever now. It's still like up like
Oh, I know.
200%, right?
I know.
So, and I haven't bought a CD. Honestly, I haven't bought a CD in it's probably like 5, 6 years now. If I buy music, it's like vinyl and
Yeah,
then
same.
the digital. And So I just thought, okay, I love vinyl, I love music history, like I'll just put it together, and I can pull new stuff, I can put old stuff, and just talk about it. So, um, yeah, I think I'm going to do it again for sure. I did enjoy doing it. And it's just, making time where you're like, like anything, I'm sure, like
Oh,
releasing on a regular schedule, like so
yeah.
people get to know, like
Oh, I
hopefully
know.
look forward to like, here's another Vinyl Site chat. And then, like I said, I want to couple that too. Like I started coupling it with like a Spotify playlist where I wanted to feature like
Oh, yeah.
anything from like big name acts that were, put, two or three like big name bands on that everyone hopefully knows that those songs are coming out. Maybe pick like a B side from that album
Yeah.
that's new, but then like kind of fill it more with like regional acts and
Sure.
stuff,
Yeah.
local acts. So um, I'm gonna get back to it. It's been the goal. So I promise you, I'll get back on it. And I do have some 1975 vinyl, so maybe I'll bring up one of those. I'll have
There
to
we
get more
go.
of a deeper cut.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, because I figure I'd talk about it because I know, much like yourself, I am also a big, like, CD collector. I literally have a box in my apartment filled with CDs that I have, like, signed, I've listened to, I've read. Literally right behind here, I have all of my vinyls, like, it's crazy. Like, and I love doing that, and people are just like, these are like it's funny, my dad or like my parents will be like, yeah, you're like, you remember these were like popular when I was like a kid, stuff like that. And then they're like so like wild out when they like are like, wow, this is like they didn't make colored versions of these and like all this stuff. And it's really cool to, you know I guess something that's old that's now new again in that respect. But I figure I talk about it because I know it was something important to you that was on Oceans Over Airplanes. But I want to see if you're doing a continuation of it. And dude, you got the Brandon cosign to do it.
All right.
But it's cool. Like, I felt like not too many people do it in that respect. And I think for myself, as like also a music nerd and stuff like that, I appreciated it for like the history knowledge. Like, the one about Thrice I really enjoyed because I like Thrice. I found out about them like obviously a while ago, but I saw them probably within the past like couple years. And just because I kind of not like blew over them, but it wasn't something that was like a band that like I grew up with that was like important to
Yeah.
me. But I knew that they were like one of those like legendary bands. And so it was cool to kind of get a history on that. And obviously Visu, they're doing a 15-year tour of that,
Yeah.
which is
That's
like
that's pretty
awesome.
killer.
But I just want to get your thoughts on that because I know it was something that I saw, on a personal aspect, but I thought it was really cool. And dude, I'll have to talk to you off camera about some of the stuff that I do that might give you a little bit more help on that
Awesome.
on that
I
front.
appreciate it.
But Tony, I got some fun questions to ask you, of course.
Sure.
My first one is, if there was one album that you wished that you wrote, what album would it be?
Oh, wish that I wrote. I'd have to say now, if we're talking like recent, I think
Okay.
I guess I'll go more recent because that stuff's been um, really, I do love the 1975's like first the Black album that came out. Like that's just front to back, man. That is just so good, and there's just I don't think a lot of people realize, maybe I'm give too much information for the future, episode here, but I, if you really listen to their stuff, man, they are kind of just like this. They're like a newer Green Day. They are the slick Green Day. When Green Day came out, everyone was just like three-chord band, da 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 da. And I remember succinctly like Billy Joe just being like, "Well, you try writing an album with three chords and see how successful you are." Just you know, calling people up. And when you listen to so much 1975, there's so much ethereal stuff going on and so much other layers of,
Yeah.
these different synths and pads that fill it all up. And when you listen to some of that stuff, it's like the same drum beat from start to finish. Doesn't change. It's the same guitar lick that's like looped the whole entire song for some of these songs. But like what he's able to do with melody, how he's able to take the same thing and he writes a vocal for the verse, and then he underneath that same melody, he'll write a different chorus, and it all sounds different and interesting. And it's just unbelievable, like trying to write something like that, or trying to like write with those rules, even
Yeah.
just in place and saying, here's my rules, I'm going to just have this and this and this, how can I make it that interesting? And it blows my mind sometimes when you look at, like, when you strip stuff down. And especially, I think, when I've listened to a lot of those songs played acoustic, and how amazing they can sound bare bones on acoustic
Yeah.
and then full bore. I think that's always a testament of like an amazing song, when you can just strip it all down to still that, and it's still just as powerful. So I say without a doubt, that first album, to me as of recently, would be, yeah, if I could have wrote that, I'd retire after that.
There you go. Awesome. Next question, Tony. Kind of to follow up that, if you could compile a musical supergroup, who would be in your band?
Who would be in my band? I would have to say, gosh, man, I got to think this piece by piece now, don't I?
Yeah.
Um, well, I guess I'll stay playing bass then.
You can leave yourself in, certainly,
I
or if,
could say that, right? Or do I have to pick a supergroup just to make right now?
no, I feel like you should have yourself in there. That's like
Yeah,
the whole
I'll play
point here.
bass. I'll do that. At least I'll hold down that end. I think on drums, I still think Dave Grohl is pretty amazing. I think that would be fantastic. Um, I would say guitar, because he could do guitar and bass, but I think Ken Andrews would be pretty amazing.
Ooh, okay,
Um,
okay, okay.
that would be awesome. Um, you know, man, where else would I go here? That would be, I mean, those two would definitely be a part of it. We could rock a trio like that. But I would like a four piece, so
Okay,
that would
okay,
be
okay.
tough.
Who are we adding to
Uh,
the mix, Tony?
man, that would be, man. You got good questions
Oh,
here.
thank you, thank you.
What can I say?
I
You know,
do my homework.
yeah, for sure. I would probably throw Jim Atkins in the
Oh,
mix
okay,
too.
okay.
Put some Jimmy in there.
All right.
I think we could get by be pretty rad doing something like that.
That would be a cool
You
group.
know, I could go with that. I could roll with that for
You could
sure.
live with that. I'm
I
sure you
could
could
live.
live with
I could
that.
live with that decision making.
And then the last thing, the most important thing, Tony, tell them about your band, where they can find you at, and anything coming up in the next couple months.
Yeah. So, Park and Main. You can pretty much. We've been lucky enough to tag everything pretty much Park and Main band. So
Beautiful.
if you Park and Main band on Twitter, on Instagram, if you're looking stuff up on Facebook, even, it's Park and Main band. We do have a website, which is parkandmainband.com. So that's pretty much Spark and Main Band. If you type that in, you'll find something there. We do have a Bandcamp, so if you'd like to support and purchase the new single, you can do that on Bandcamp. If you just like streaming stuff, it's anywhere you want to stream. It's all been put up there through our distribution through CD Baby, so you can find it on iTunes and that you can find it on Spotify. You can find it on Tidal. You can go, hey Alexa, and play Mind Reader, and you'll get it. So all that cool stuff. Coming up in the future, we're keeping our fingers crossed. We just submitted for South by Southwest, so we were lucky enough to do it 3 times, like officially, unofficially, right? We've never had an official showcase, but we've always, the past 2 years, we've had 4 showcases each time that we've been
Beautiful.
down there. So we've been busy with that. The goal this year is to get some bigger showcases and get an official one. So keep your fingers crossed for us. Hopefully we hear some good news in January and hopefully get back down there again. But otherwise, the immediate future is just kind of like I said. We're going to continue working out everything with Ace moving forward, and the goal is to probably have 3 or 4 new tracks now that we go into the studio between now and the end of the year. Kind of get more of that new music pushed in the vision that we have. We're introducing another new member into the group, so we are going to be a 4-piece. So that is super exciting, which is going to fill things out. How we've gone by the process of hey, let's record stuff and make it as good as it can sound, and then we'll worry later about how we're going to replicate it. And now it's going to be easier to make those decisions replicating, because we'll have that fourth guitar player that's supposed, fourth member of the band, I should say, that pull that out. Not fourth guitar player, even though sometimes you would think there's four. I mean, some of the stuff it's pretty layered out. So, so we're excited about that. So we'll be announcing him coming up soon and everything as well. So we'll have that. So next time you definitely see us play, it will be away from the three-piece. There'll be four of us, and like I said, we'll have all the rest of this other stuff figured out between the branding and all that. But we're going to really be focusing onto is working on the live show. Like we always go back to that Foo Fighters DVD when they were talking about their back and forth, their 20 years, and when they made that transition of like, hey, you can come see us play, or we're going to put on a show for you. And I think that's something that, for bands, like, how can you separate yourself? You go up there and just play your songs, or can you make it like a continuous movement? And we've been always more about that. I don't always like to get up and talk and do all that kind of stuff. Like, I'd rather just, hey, you came here to see music, like, we're going to go up and do it. And if you're vibing off the crowd and you feel like, yeah, then you can add those antidotes, and you can add those behind the scene moments of what the song's about. But a lot of those filler in between, you hate the tuning song, you hate that awkward dead space. Like, you want to come out and you just want it, like I said, you wanted a show in between. So we're going to really evaluate that and try to take that next step with the band as well. Because I think playing live, as much as I have a studio here that we work out of in my home, and we demo stuff out, and all the gear that we have, like, as much as we have that, I'd still rather be playing live every day of the week, than being holed up in a studio. So that's where we, want to really focus on now and get all that right, so that when it's hit again, here's some newer tunes. We'll keep some of the old stuff just for the transition, sure. To keep people coming out that want to hear those stuff. We're still proud, especially of 3 or 4 of those that we think will fit in the early transition. We might try to re-envision them a little bit, depending on how the new stuff ends up. So, you wrote the songs, you can tear them apart as much as you want, right? So that will be the thing going forward, over these next couple of months. Our next show that we really have scheduled on the books is until the new year right now. So if we get something that's really cool, we'll take it for sure. But I think the writing is going to be the major focus. And then, like I said, it looks like by the end of October, we'll be releasing soon. We're going to release the new single, I Hate to Drive, and we'll have a new music video for that as well that we did properly with a great buddy of ours. So so before all that drops, we'll have one more video. We'll kind of do like a lyric video for Mind Reader until that happens, just to kind of re-promote the song. But yeah, I Hate to Drive looks like the end of October with a brand new video.
There we go. Awesome. Well, Tony gave you a mind full of information, so if you can't remember it all, check the links in the description to find out about Park and Main. Tony's been on a few times now, and I always love having repeat people talking and stuff like that. It's always it's always cool to see a band take a refresh take on what they do, and best of luck, obviously, and I'll be obviously looking out for all of your stuff coming out in the future. But check out Park and Main. Seriously, Tony's been a good friend for the past couple years, and so I feel like when he hit me up and we're like, we got to do something, I had to get him back on. So go check out his stuff, and if you do live in his area, definitely go out and see them. They're fantastic. I saw them at launch a few years ago, and I can imagine that their show is still as good, if not even better, since the last time. But if you enjoyed this interview, share it, like it, subscribe. It goes a long way. And thanks, of course, to Tony for coming back on again.
Thanks for having me. It's been a blast as always, my man.
All right,
hey guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Of course, if you enjoy what we do, make sure to go check out the other series we do. We do album reviews, we do band interviews, and we do live videos, so definitely go check that out. Hit that subscribe button. It really helps our channel, helps us grow. Make sure to hit that like button as well. Go follow us on social media. That's all down below. We try to keep that as updated as possible. We also made a new website where we'll be posting photos of upcoming concerts and stuff like that, which you can go check out at audioaddictionmedia.com and come get your fix with us, guys. Talk to you later. Deuces.